Lando Norris holds off Oscar Piastri to keep the 2025 championship alive. This is Shifting Happens. Hello, everybody. Welcome back to Shifting Happens, episode 25. Can't believe we've done that many already. I'm delighted to say that I'm joined by Marshall and working diligently, as always, behind the background. We have our wonderful producer, Fly, who is not feeling well today. So, can we please send some love to Fly as he fights off a bug of some description? But get well soon, buddy. Yes, let's talk about the Hungarian Grand Prix. Marshall, if you don't mind, I'm going to monologue slightly because I was there. I was at the track. It was very entertaining. I will say that if you've never been to a Grand Prix before, like I haven't, Hungary is an amazing one to go and watch because I went with Shez, also of this parish, and we were sat at the turn 7 chicane, but we could all, because of the bowl-like nature of the circuit, we could actually see all the way up to turn 1 as well. So at the start of each race that we watched, we could literally see them like come around the first corner, then we could hear them coming, and then they come around turn 4 or 5, then head into the chicane, and it was absolutely awesome to see that. But also the way the cars took the chicane, particularly in the F1, was very indicative of performance. So we knew the McLarens were going to be quick because they attacked that chicane really hard. The only other cars that did that were Leclerc and Stroll, of all people, Stroll. So the Aston Martin performance was not a surprise to us. But the whole atmosphere around the track was fantastic. So yeah, if you've never been to Hungary, go. That's kind of my long and short of it. And it was a great race as well. Speaking of which, Marshall, what did you think of the Hungarian Grand Prix?
Oh, it was just another 2025 Grand Prix, but it's cool when you're there. Obviously, I was at the Montreal race marshalling, and it wasn't the most exciting race, but it had the McLaren drama at the end. But the commentary online was that it was a dreadful, horrible race, and it didn't feel like that when you're there live. Like, obviously, being there changes your perspective. I know that was more of a pit stop race and there wasn't a lot of overtaking, but it still felt like you were never quite sure how it would shake out. And it felt like a decent, B or C of a Grand Prix, but like I went on threads after and everybody was whining about how dreadfully boring it was, and I didn't feel that at all being there in Montreal. So it was like interesting how your perspective is made a lot different by being at the race. I've never been to Hungary. I've been to Silverstone, and I've been to Belgium and Monza a long time ago. But it's definitely on the list of tracks. I was just curious, like, do the F1 cars look gigantic there? Because that is a very tight, twisty track that's in a confined space. Do they look like they're kind of almost too big?
No, I'd say they look just. I think if they were any bigger, then you'd think yes, but I think they are just the right size. I mean, we saw Max Verstappen make 3 brilliant passes into that chicane, and I don't think that would have been possible with bigger cars. So I think the one thing that got me though is how quiet those engines are.
Mm-hmm.
They're not loud at all. I got ear protection.
F2 is louder. F2 is
Yes,
louder.
absolutely,
F2
I completely agree.
F2 is louder, and like the Porsche Cup cars are even louder again.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah, being a musician, I was like, oh, I need to protect my ears because that's my job. And Shez said to me, he said, no, you don't need them. I was like, and then we sat there for FP2 on Friday, and it was like, oh no, we really do not need these.
Yeah. And I mean, they catch you off guard when the support series come out, and they're even louder.
Yeah, it's true.
It's kind of a kind of a funny thing that like the Porsche Super Cup cars are so much slower but way louder.
Yeah, yeah, big crash in that as well. Actually,
Oh,
on the
there always
racing.
is. There
Yeah,
always is.
though I was filming the opening lap, and then my camera was going this way, and the crash was over that. I completely missed it.
Yeah, we
um,
had the Porsche Carrera Cup, the IMSA version, as a support race in Montreal, and
yeah,
they were surprisingly responsible. It was the Formula One Academy that decided to make a little bit of a mess.
fair enough. Fair enough.
But
Right, let's talk about the race then, because Lando Norris took victory. Terrible start. Dropped down to P5. He started behind his teammate Oscar Piastri, and surprisingly, the Ferrari of Charles Leclerc. I don't think anyone saw that coming, let alone us at the track. I mean, we were sat with quite a few Ferrari fans, and when he went to pole position, it was like, oh my god, like what? Um, but he ended up winning the race by taking on a one-stop strategy that worked out perfectly for him. I know, Marshall, you've got quite a lot to say on that.
yeah,
But Oscar Piastri does chase him down, but he doesn't get the pass done. So it's a 1-2 for McLaren yet again. George Russell then overtakes Charles Leclerc near the end to take the final spot on the podium because Ferrari's pace completely disappeared. We will get into that, I have no doubt. But Marshall, quick peek behind the curtain. We've had some disagreements about this already. Kind of give us your viewpoint on how you saw that race from just purely from the standpoint of the McLarens.
so I think that a couple of times in recent races, starting with Silverstone and again here, Oscar and his side of the garage are concerning themselves too much with what people who aren't in the championship are doing, and they should just be looking only at Lando. We're at the point in the championship where, you know, Charles doesn't matter in terms of how they run their strategy. And if we look back to other inter-team fights in the past, you know, they had to manage the strategy to keep both drivers on the same sort of keel because they were always looking at what the other did. I think a lot of this is McLaren never having been in this position. By the time Mercedes got to 2016, they'd had 2 years of Nico and Lewis wanting to one up each other in dominant cars, so they were used to it. Like they knew what to expect. They knew how the rules of engagement worked. But here, I don't think that McLaren fully understands, and absolutely Oscar's side of the garage do not understand that the only thing that matters strategically is Lando. So why you're trying to undercut a Ferrari just doesn't make any sense. And I mean, I understand that Charles' pace dropped off, and you were not expecting that pace to just collapse in the final stint. But at the same time, um, you would have expected over the course of the race that it's fairly likely that a McLaren would just get the job done at some point. Like the Ferrari's going to be harder on its tires. We know that the Ferrari's not as good a car. Like, yes, he had a great first stint, but you shouldn't ruin your race against your teammate who you're battling for the championship with, a handful, I guess, 10 races left. Um, you know, you're handing him an opportunity on a silver platter to do something different. And yes, like I admit all that stuff. Like when I said this on threads, like everybody's like, well, they didn't know the one stopper was faster. I know, but you're handing him the opportunity to try and do something different. And you shouldn't hand your only and most competitive rival that opportunity because it's so much harder to pass somebody in the same car as you than it is to pass a Ferrari. Like, if you're going to, like, there is no way they should have tried that undercut. Like, they ruined their race by trying that undercut and failing. If the undercut had worked, it probably still wouldn't have worked enough. Like Oscar would have had to have got a pit stop in hand pretty much to have Lando not be able to do the one stopper. Like by stopping first, Piastri ceded the options. Piastri's side of the garage ceded the options to the Lando side of the garage when they didn't need to, when they had track position, when they had the advantage and they could dictate Lando to blink first because he was stuck behind George when for a lot of the race. So Oscar didn't need to pit there, and not getting the undercut done just proved that it was the wrong move. Like the undercut was not strong enough, and he didn't manage to do it. So then he was stuck behind Charles for the next stint, and then it was over. Like it was a own goal, not as originally I said it's McLaren not understanding the strategy, but like Lando's side of the garage understood the assignment. It was Oscar's side of the garage just didn't figure out that you only care about the other car.
Which I will say, having gone back and listened to some of the radio, Oscar definitely seems to understand that because he was told, wasn't he, by
hmm
Tom Stallard, he said, "What data do you need?" And he said, "I need Lando's data," because I think he could foresee what was going to happen.
Yeah.
And
Which is ridiculous because the team shouldn't even need to ask that question.
yeah, I mean, I'm going to defend Oscar's side of the garage a little bit here. Is that we know that the key thing this year to performance is clean air, and for them there was a barrier in the way in Charles Leclerc. So in order to get the clean air, they needed to get him past Charles. Now they did their bit. They gave him the opportunity. They did the 1.96 second pit stop. But it just didn't work for them on this occasion. Ferrari also held up their end of the bargain by giving Charlotte a good pit stop and everything else.
But I think
Charles,
the thing about that is, yeah, you want the clean air, but Lando was stuck behind George. So it's not
he
like
was, yeah.
Lando
I mean,
had
he
a
was going to
good.
pass George on that the start of his last stint, but then George
Yeah,
pitted, but he was going to get that pass done.
but that was much later.
Yeah, much later on. Yeah,
Yeah.
I mean, there was all this talk about, wasn't there, fairness and, should they be treated fairly? I mean, look, Formula One and motorsport in general is inherently unfair. If it was fair, then everyone would have the same car, and then it would purely be based on driver performance. It would be a spec series. So the fact that sometimes it just doesn't go your way, and because of these things that happen, and unfortunately for Oscar, it worked against him. But I think he will learn from that. I think his side of the garage will learn from it as well. McLaren, their goal is to win Formula One races, and they thought, right, well, we know we can win with Oscar, but we think we could win with Lando as well. I mean, just to give you our perspective of the track, we thought that what they were doing is that they were keeping Lando out longer to back Charles into Oscar for then Oscar to make the pass, and then Lando would pit and come home in third. But then when he came in, we realised what they were doing was like, oh, they're going for the one stop. That's actually really good, and we thought he might be able to win this race from here. And we thought once Charles and Oscar had stopped, we thought, yeah, that's it. What we didn't anticipate was then Oscar would catch up as quickly as he did. And I think Oscar could have won that race regardless of we felt, certainly Shez and I, that he went a lap too early with the overtake. He went on lap 69. He was getting closer and closer in that battle. And if he'd gone on that last lap, I think he had a better opportunity to get it done. The move he did felt like a desperate dive bomb, which it wasn't, but it's kind of how it looked to us. And we felt that if he'd gone that lap later, he might have been able to make it a little bit cleaner.
You did see his comments after, though, right?
I did, Oscar's. But I can't remember
so
them.
He said that there was just no way, like with that tire offset, to overtake someone in the same car as you. That there just wasn't. He's like, I could have had 5 more laps and I wasn't going to get by him. And
I think he could have. Personally, I think he could have, because he was definitely quicker. Like just on the naked eye test, he was definitely quicker. We could see that. Lando was managing his tyres very well, I have to say. And I think the thing that surprised us the most is that Lando didn't make a mistake. Normally in situations, high pressure situations like this, you think, okay, Lando will probably chuck a wobble in at some point. He might go a little bit wide at a corner, or he might not get the exit he wants or something, like we've seen him do on so many occasions. But on this one, he didn't. He held strong.
This is
He
like
kept
the
his
reverse of what happened in Spa, really, where
yeah,
they're closing each other down in the end. But again, like this is part of battling within your own team, is that if this is, Piastri chasing down Max, there's no holds barred, right? When
yeah,
it's your teammate, it's got to be super clean. You're not
yeah.
taking any unnecessary risk because you know that that's your championship over.
I mean, I
And
think that that's probably going to stop after the summer break because the championship comes. They're just going to put their own championship first. I mean, I saw a stat today that if McLaren won the next 3 races, which to be honest with you, is very possible, they will win the constructors' championship with 7 races to go.
yeah, yeah,
Once that's
they're
done,
gone. Yeah.
yeah, once that's done, those drivers are not going to care. That's gloves off time. And I think it'll be interesting to see how it plays out. I mean, I felt like this was a big blow landed by Lando for the first time this year. Like this was him saying to Oscar, "You had the advantage, but I held you off." And I'm not. Yeah, people are writing me off. Don't write me off. This was the first time I thought, okay, maybe he can win this championship.
I've
Like, because
felt
I,
the
yeah,
entire time that he's going to win this championship.
yes, yeah.
But at the same time, I don't feel like this race was anything against Oscar. It was just circumstance. I
Yeah.
think, it is super hard to pass somebody in the best car, even if you also have the best car. I think that, a lot of the time we perpetuate the narrative of like, oh, he's catching him, or he's hunting him down. But you really don't have the ability to pass someone in the same car as you very often. Like teammate passes are rare to begin with, done successfully are even more rare, and then done in the closing stages of a race when the order is guaranteed, even less so. Like
Yeah.
I think that we'll have a lot more of these, but if we had like where one car is catching or right in the wheel tracks of the other heading to the finish, but that's how it ends because
Well, Lando learned the hard way, didn't he, in Canada? Because he went for the move, stupidly went for the move where he did, and ended up crashing into the wall, and he lost all those points. And
I
I think the
mean,
advantage he had is that wasn't for P1; it was for P3.
exactly,
Yeah,
exactly. And they both made the same mistake in Australia, and Oscar got punished for it way worse than Lando did.
I would have to say at the moment that Australian mistake could come back and haunt Oscar. I
It
think.
already is.
Yeah, because he should be a bit further ahead in the championship. I mean, you guys were talking about in the last episode. Who do you think is going to win the championship? You're kind of having that discussion, like which you said Lando. I think most of the guys fall on the side of Oscar. I too fall on the side of Oscar still. Now, I'm not going to hide the fact that I want Lando to win the championship. I'm a Brit. I'm a proud Brit. I want my guy to win. But I just think at the moment Oscar still has the keys to the championship in his hands. But if this the way I described it is this felt like I was watching a driver level up in real time. Watching him just get that little bit stronger. And I think Oscar now knows for the pair of them, this could be a dogfight to the end of the season. I'm looking forward to seeing how it all plays out. I'm looking forward to having a few weeks off, but I'm looking forward to seeing how it all plays out. And Zandvoort, I think, is going to be a good track to see how they measure up after this. Who's used their summer break more effectively? It's a Lando track. We saw that last year, so I'm looking forward to seeing how that all plays out. But enough about McLaren. We have to talk about Ferrari. We have to do it. We're going to get the video today. We may not. But yes, Ferrari. Oh boy, tough weekend for them in some respects. Obviously, Charles got the pole. That was great. But the race did not go well for them. Lewis had an absolute stinker of a weekend. Yeah, I'm a Lewis guy. I can't defend him. He was terrible. Yeah. What did you make of Ferrari this weekend? Like, what was your general feeling?
I'm very confused. They're clearly not like they're clearly well, first of all, George's conspiracy theory about the running the plank, and that they backed off by increasing the tire pressures so that um, they didn't wear the plank. And Ferrari's response was, "Oh no, we had a chassis problem, which wasn't related to the engine, which we were just differentiating chassis." And then they're like, "Oh, so you had like damage?" "Oh no, we were just not. It wasn't an engine problem because Leclerc had complained about clipping at one point."
So just to say that George's theory has been sort of partially been confirmed by some Italian media outlets, but Italian media pinch of salt.
Yeah, but I mean, I was just gonna say, like, Ferrari didn't really deny it, did they?
No,
Like,
no,
and
they didn't.
and they didn't exactly come out and say, "Oh no, George is full of crap." They just sort of said, we were managing an issue and we'll take it back to the factory and we'll have to do an analysis and whatever." And they were kind of hedging. I think Fred was kind of hedging on, like, I think they did do that, but I think that they're hoping or thinking that there's a larger issue as well, because perhaps they thought that increasing the tire pressures would impact performance by, a certain lap time, and then what they were seeing Charles putting in lap times was way worse than that, and they're assuming that there must be more to the story. That's what it kind of sounds like, but I think that George's theory is probably more correct than not, given that
Yeah,
they have been, they fell afoul of plank wear in China of all tracks. So,
yeah.
you know,
So I'm going to get on my little soapbox here and go off on one about Ferrari. I know AJ's not here; he's our resident Ferrari fan. But the way look, Ferrari had I think, had a lot of momentum going into this year. They just signed Lewis. That was such a good news story for them. They were 14 points away from winning the constructors' championship. You and AJ both predicted them to do the double this year, and I don't think you were unreasonable in that prediction, given where they were this time. Around this time last year when it all really started to click for them. And then, okay, Australia was a abhorrent race for them. They just screwed the pooch on setup. But then Lewis won the sprint, and you thought, okay, Ferrari have come to the party now. They're here. They're going to get going. And then the double DQ happened, and I don't think they've recovered from that. It has train wrecked their season. Lewis has pretty much been lifting and coasting all season. I mean, he was lifting and coasting in Hungary from lap 3. People wondering why was he not making any ground on the cars in front of him, because he was lifting and coasting. It's ridiculous that they're in that situation. Charles having to have higher tire pressures put on his car so as to stop the floor from wearing away any further, that they could risk another potential DQ. They changed the concept on the car. It's gone completely wrong for them. Look, even if they'd got the concept right, they probably weren't going to be able to stay with McLaren because they've just absolutely nailed it this year. But for a team to be that close to fall off that hard is just unacceptable. I mean, you had Lewis practically in tears in the media pen on both Saturday and Sunday, which was horrible to watch. He had a stinker of a weekend and had his own problems with brakes and everything else. How can it? I mean, I say, how can a team get it so wrong? This is Ferrari. We've seen it so many times where they just get it so badly wrong, and then you have people say, "Oh, they're second in the constructors' championship. It's all well and good." Well, look at your competition. McLaren are out of sight. Okay, ignore them. Mercedes have got a rookie driving for them who, okay, has been fine, but no more than that. And George is doing a lot of the heavy lifting. And then you've got Red Bull that until 2 races ago were a one-car team and basically giving Yuki an opportunity to trundle around at the back. And Hungary, they were a complete disaster, but that was expected. So really, they're kind of second because they have a very strong driver lineup, very consistent driver lineup. People say that Lewis hasn't been great this year. And then you had Lewis up until this weekend had scored points in every single race. He was one of only 2 drivers to have done that. The other driver, Oscar Piastri. And therefore, it's just, it's no surprise they're second when you have that ability in both of your cars. And Lewis has shown shades of performance this year. We saw it in Silverstone. We were seeing it at other tracks where he's been traditionally strong. But yeah, he's having to adjust to a new team. And in 2025, that's an incredibly difficult thing to do. But yeah, for me, Ferrari
team is struggling.
To a team that's struggling. I mean, look at Carlos Sainz. I mean,
yeah.
when we saw Carlos was going to Williams, I think both you and I can't speak for you, but for me, I thought he's going to go to Williams and not just beat Alex Albon, he's going to destroy him. I mean, you must have thought the same, right? Like,
I think Albon's underrated. I thought they would be really close.
Yeah. But I don't think people would expect Albon to beat Carlos in the way that he has been this year.
No, not to that extent.
But clearly the jump between teams and between power units as well is so severe that it takes time to bed in. And then when you look at Ferrari and you look at all the other difficulties that they've had, I mean, is it any wonder? I mean, here's Rory. Shades of 2019 Ferrari. Ferrari in 2019 testing had a front suspension failure, reversed to 2018 suspension, trying to DSQ and brings a new rear suspension to fix that, but it doesn't. Yeah, I mean, the rear suspension I think has kind of worked, but not really. There's clearly a more fundamental issue with this concept. And yeah, I mean, they're out of the running now. They're a long way off. But,
what do we make of Lewis's comments? Because I have some thoughts there. Because
floor is yours.
Well, you're a Lewis fan, so you listen to what he says often. Yeah. I heard what he said, and I hear the words, but I hear him saying something completely different than what he's actually saying. When he's like taking it all on himself and like saying, "Oh, they should find another driver," and people are taking that at face value. I hear that, and I think that what he's really doing is saying, "Hey, Mr. Elkan, I could be throwing you shade right now, but I'm going to sit here and be incredibly inflammatory towards myself and grab all the headlines to buy you sort of the time to fix this and not create," like, he's doing it in a way that is very obvious to create attention, but it can't create negative attention in Italy. Because we know how the Italian media is. They fired Alain Prost because he called the car a truck. Like, Ferrari, you can't. It's like the Rush movie. It's like, you can't say that. It's a Ferrari. Like, it's very political. And Lewis is a very political guy. And for him to come out and say something like that is not without a purpose. It's not like, oh, sad sack Lewis is upset and just wants to talk about his problems in a public forum. It's like every word that guy speaks is for a reason, and there's clearly a strategy here. Whether they've been given a memo that says, "Hey, we know the car's shit, but you can't talk about it," or you can't, whatever's been done behind the scenes, he's like, "Okay, I will follow the company line, but I will make it clear that things are not going well in my own way."
Yeah, I mean, he kind of hinted at that on Sunday, didn't he? He was kind of saying, "Oh, well, there's things going on in the background that I can't talk about." And Charles been saying that as well this year. They've both been kind of saying, "Yeah, there's things we just can't talk about." I mean, look, Lewis getting upset about things, that's part of his character. Like, he expects so much of himself. Like, he expects to win every race. He expects to be at the front because that's the standard he sets for himself, and it has worked for him. Look at the success he's had. He's seven-time world champion, 104 race wins, 105 race wins, 104 poles. The record speaks for itself. But it's not just that; it's the way he goes racing. He expects to be on the limit, and he expects to be. He just can't get a hold of this car. This generation of car, generally, he just hasn't been able to get a hold of. So to see Lewis upset is obviously never nice, but I think it's also a part of what endears him to so many people. That he is prepared to wear his heart on his sleeve like that. But I agree with you that there was definitely some undertones of political shenanigans going on, and I think Lewis's main focus now has to be next year. I think he needs to just get through these next 10 races, build the rapport with the team. I know there's a lot of people trying to throw Riccardo Adami under the bus. I think it's a little harsh. They're still trying to find their way. And it's difficult. It's difficult.
Can you speculate, like, what would these things that they can't talk about be related to?
It wouldn't surprise me if it's to do with this floor issue that they've got, and that they can't drive the car the way they want to. They can't drive flat out. I think Charles, for the first time, drove that car flat out in Hungary for those first two stints, but it came back to bite him in the third stint, and that's why his performance dropped off, and it's why they had to put the tyre pressures up. And also, his penalty was deserved for driving into George. That was dumb. A comment from Rory here. He's only beaten Charles twice this season. Lewis, this is the problem for Lewis is the field has convergence, and being only 15 thousandths off Q1 is so close now. I mean, yes, that is true. That is exacerbating the problem, I think. He was 2 tenths off Charles in Q2, and I think in previous years, if you're 2 tenths off your teammate in a second place championship car, you're probably still going to make Q3. Whereas now you can't afford to be like that because 2 or 3 other cars will fill that gap and put you out. Look at Yuki Tsunoda, for example. He was a 10th off Max in Q1 and went out in Q1.
It's funny. I was watching 2014 qualifying. I forget which race, but oh my God, like half a second between the two Mercedes and then a second to the rest.
Yeah.
Just the
crazy.
field spread used to be insane.
Yeah. Whereas now you just can't afford to be off at all. I mean, Shez did a brilliant trace video on his channel, Thai GP, and he talked about how basically in the first 2 sectors, it was pretty close between Lewis and Charles in Q2, but then Lewis's lap completely unraveled in the third sector. And I think a lot of that came from the chicane because he never took the chicane as cleanly. His rear always seemed to be stepping out. We could see that from where we were, that he was struggling with the rear. So I think that maybe had something to do with it. And then he just lost the performance for the rest of the lap. And obviously Hungary is one of Lewis's best tracks, which will not make it any easier for him as well. He's been so strong there. But yeah, got a question here from M12X12. What are we to make of Ocon moving to Haas Ferrari and not offering the same complaints, explanations as Hamilton and Sainz? Good question, but he's probably got a very different set of circumstances to the other two. Lewis and Carlos are going into teams with established teammates. Alex has been there. This is his 4th season with the team. And then you've got Lewis, who's going up against Charles, who's 7th or 8th season with the team. Ocon's going up against a rookie, so he has a lot more room to breathe. Like, yes, Ollie has had 3 races already going into this, but that's only 3 races. It's a very different set of circumstances.
Not to mention how good it feels to get out of Alpine.
Well, there's also that, yeah.
Like, to get an opportunity that's not.
If Esteban's gone into that team and he's racing K-Mag, for example, they're probably closer, I would say. And if it was Hulk in the team, I think Hulk would be kicking his ass, quite frankly. In this generation, and Rory and Shez have kind of agreed with that, it's very different set of circumstances for for Ocon. So yeah, and the gap between them isn't massive. I think Ollie's actually out qualified him, I think, but Esteban's been scoring the points.
Can I
So
posit a different theory too? Is that it's different when you go to a better car, and arguably the Haas this year is probably a better car to drive
yes,
than the Alpine was last year.
yes, I agree with that. Yeah,
And it's harder to go from a Ferrari that was second in the constructors down to a Williams.
yeah.
Like that's a harder transition.
That's also. I mean,
Um,
Carlos has had some decent performances this year, but
it's
not.
always hard to go backwards, like
Yes,
to go down. Like
absolutely agree. Yeah,
it's
yeah,
it's if you get an opportunity to, it's like when we saw Lewis struggle against George in 2022. It's
yeah,
impossible to come off of those highs of, winning all those championships and the disappointment of losing out in fun circumstances. Um, and then like jumping into a zero side pod crap box in
Oh
your
God,
first
yeah,
race, right?
yes,
Where
yeah,
George is like, this is the fastest car I've ever driven. It's not sponsored by Rocket, and it's not
yeah,
a,
yeah. No, fully agree with
like
that.
he's just out there saying, this is pretty good. It's better than a Williams, and
Yeah,
he's driving the wheels off it. Wasn't he like Mr. Fourth Place that year or something? He was just always right
he's
there.
always in and around the top five. Yeah, it's
Yeah, it was just consistently scoring points
yeah,
and just consistently in the mix. And Lewis was struggling on the
yeah.
start of that season. And like they had similar point scores by the end of the year, but Russell did get that win in Brazil too.
So just to clarify, so Lewis actually took on a lot of extra weight in that first half of the season because he was doing a lot of sensor work because the team were like, we got because obviously George was new to the team, just like right, Lewis, you need to do the donkey work here. But then when they took all that off, like Lewis started out qualifying George pretty much all the time. And yeah, the only time that George, I think, outqualified Lewis in that second half of the season was in Brazil, when he then went and won the sprint race and then went and won the Grand Prix the next day. So yeah, I think
And all everyone
complete
remembers is Alonso.
in
Oh
22,
no, that
right?
was
That
22.
was
That was
23.
23.
Yeah,
Yeah,
he did
yeah,
that. Yeah,
yeah.
but yeah, no, it's a fair point, and you know, I think Lewis and Carlos in particular are definitely doing a lot of bedding in work ahead of next year because I
hmm
mean, yeah, if we look at the rumors, you think the Mercedes engine is going to be light years ahead of everyone else, is the current rumor. I mean, you never know until next year, but if that's the case, Williams are going to fancy their chances to score some good points next year. So if Carlos is then bedded in with the team, he's going to benefit from that.
I'm not
So
convinced that the Mercedes is like nailed on to be dominant, because
no, 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 no.
if it was,
It's
then
in pole
everybody.
position right now, I would say, but yeah,
But it's like you wouldn't have, George would just be like, "Yep, give me the 1 year. I'll go out and win the championship," and then, you know, it wouldn't be this. And then like Verstappen would be trying like hell to get in there, and
yeah,
he's still hedging his bets with
yeah,
RBPT. And Lewis decided, no, I'd rather go to Ferrari than stick
yeah.
it out at Mercedes. So, you know, all
Well,
these signs of these drivers that, like, if this was a car that was, or an engine development that was capable of giving Lewis his eighth, he would have stayed.
I will say with Ferrari, with Lewis even and that move, I think we all know that Lewis wasn't going to be at Mercedes next year anyway. I think Kimi was coming in next year because I don't think they would have offered him another contract. Toto made that perfectly clear that they were basically going to get to the point where they're like, Lewis, sorry, mate, we're going to move you on. So I think he went to Ferrari basically to extend his career by a few years, which I don't blame him for doing at all. And also like the momentum was there, and you looked at it and you thought, yeah, this is a good move. He's Mercedes getting better, but not great. But Ferrari, they could be winning championships this year. Obviously, hasn't worked out that way, but who knows what they might bring up next year. You see the reports, it's a bit 50-50. Sometimes they've got a great car, sometimes it's not looking great. But one thing they will have next year is they will have Fred Vasseur. There's been some rumours over his future. Yeah, look, there's been a lot of change at Ferrari in the last few years, and there is still a lot of mess within that team. But Fred has definitely made things better, I think. How do you feel about him staying on, Marshall?
I think that you can't write him off until you give the 2026 car a chance.
Yeah,
I think that he deserves to stay on. If the 2026 car is not competitive, then big change. Like that cannot like this is such an important rule set and an important moment for so many teams. You've got, Aston with Newey now. You've
and
got
Honda.
and Honda, and you've got like what have we seen? McLaren accepted. They showed up in 2022 with those major brake issues and were brutal for the first third of the season. But really, once they figured out those issues, they were on an upward trajectory, right?
Yeah,
But, the teams that didn't figure out these regulations never really figured them out. Like,
Mercedes is still struggling.
like they
Like, like look
and
at they had to revert back to their old floral suspension because the upgrade they brought to the car just didn't work.
yeah, the Imola upgrade where they
Yeah,
said that they thought it was the floor upgrade helped them win Canada, and then they realized that actually no, it had
no,
nothing to do with that.
no.
But I think that was just a track specific thing.
Yeah, I agree.
Canada just really suited that car and the temperatures and everything. Just something about that day in that track just really suited that car, and it kind of led them down an incorrect path.
Yeah, I
It's
agree.
like
Yeah,
you get misled by success sometimes.
we saw that most famously for them, Brazil 22. They kept with the zero pod, and then after one race in 23, went, "Yeah, this is a disaster. We've got to change concept."
Yeah,
Yeah,
and
so
it seems to be them a lot, doesn't it?
yeah, and yeah, as you were saying about Fred, I think yes, 26 is the big moment for him. Yeah, he's copping a lot of heat for the disaster that has been this year, because ultimately he's the boss, and it stays. The buck stops with him. And they went down this new concept path, which in the last year of a reg set is always a huge risk to do. I thought it was a bad idea. Others thought it was a good idea. I've been proven right on this front. I don't like being right on this case. I want to be wrong. I want Ferrari to be right there with McLaren. But
Where's AJ? Where's AJ?
I know. I'm still holding out hope. I'm still holding out. Give it up, bro. Yeah, your championship's
Yeah,
done. Yeah. I think it's good that Fred's being kept on because there were whispers that Horner might be involved, which I just think would be so bad for Ferrari. But yeah, not great for Ferrari. Just a quick one to finish off the pod, Marshall. We're not going to do any predictions today because we've got a few weeks before the next race, and hang on, we've got
lots of
comments.
napping to do.
Lots of napping to do. No other team seems as able as McLaren to develop a car with as good a correlation between tools and track. Yeah, I'd agree with that. I can't. They do seem to be, but their new wind tunnel will definitely be helping. And they've got the best technical team. So I think if the Mercedes engine is strong next year, I still think McLaren will be players because they've got that amazing aero team. So even though I think people would logically think Mercedes would be favourites with a Mercedes power engine, wouldn't rule out McLaren at all. They are super strong at the minute. But yeah, final point for you, Marshall, is Sauber have been doing pretty well the last few races. And I know you've been quite, what should I say, cautious about the Audi project. But they've
Yep.
made some big progress, and Jonathan Wheatley seems to have been an inspired hire as team principal. He's done a great job there. They got the podium with Nico. Bortoletto has become a revelation this season. That he's now entering into Rookie of the Year chats deservedly as well, alongside Isaac Hadjar.
Just see Alonso's comments.
Okay, right. Fernando doesn't understand British press at all because if Ollie Behrman was in that position, nobody's putting him on the front page. Like, that's not how we like winners. So if he's winning races, yeah, sure. But no, Fernando, you got that one completely wrong. But do we think that Audi's actually trending in the right direction at the moment? And then this is something I had in a discussion with somebody else. But do you think it could actually be a dark horse project for somebody like Max Verstappen to take on in the future if their trajectory keeps going the way it is?
So what I thought you were going to say is Carlos Sainz looking back and saying, "Damn it."
Well, he would
Cuz
have stuck with a Ferrari engine, which would have made life a bit easier for him.
but I mean, like, just being a part of the Audi project might have a higher ceiling than sticking it out at Williams over the
Yeah,
next 3 years. Like, he didn't believe in that project because it was in shambles a year ago. And now here we are, you know, a year, not even a year later, and you kind of wish that if you were Carlos, you might have made a different choice.
yeah,
Because they already had Hulkenberg and they had made him an offer.
yeah.
Um, and he had offers on the table from Audi, from Williams, and from Alpine, I believe. And he
Don't go
picked
to Alpine. Just
no,
don't go to Alpine.
no, don't go there.
They're
But
keeping
yeah,
Franco Colapinto for the rest of the season, apparently. Like, sweet Jesus.
so we won't see him either way because
Yeah,
we never see the second Alpine in the broadcast unless it's being lapped.
yeah.
But no, I think, yeah, I hear you. I was not positive about the Audi project because of all the upheaval. It's also been like a running joke for the past 30 years. Like, when are they joining? When are they joining? And was it Rory's meme or was it somebody else's meme of like all the Audi sports cars, like the beautiful sports cars, and it's like, and then the Audi F1 car and the Thanos goes like this and all the it's like,
Yeah,
but what was the cost?
yeah, yeah,
Because
yeah,
the Audi Le Mans cars are beautiful and they've had a record of success in sports cars, and it's like they pulled out all of their motorsport activities as a factory manufacturer and just about everything to put everything into Formula One, and then they just vanished. So I think I had resentment as somebody who loves Audis and sports cars, seeing them do the prototypes, but not just that. Like, they had factory supported teams, like customer teams in IMSA. They were in every touring car series. Like, they were racing everywhere, and then they just sort of pulled out somewhere in the 2000, like 22, 23. They
yeah.
just started
It's a go, isn't it?
slowly pulling out of all of their racing activities from a factory perspective. There's still some Audi touring cars running in the lower IMSA classes, but nothing in the top level. And I just felt like, okay, you're putting all this money and resources, but you're just vanishing as a brand, and you're putting kick and stake on the side of the car. Like,
Yeah.
but you've spent all this money and you've erased your presence from global motorsport for 3-4 years, right? Like, nobody knows you exist now.
Yeah.
And I just felt like it was a short-sighted move. And like, even we're seeing Cadillac coming in next year, and they're taking the complete opposite approach. They're using a Ferrari engine, but they're still branding it Cadillac. Where
Yeah.
Audi was like, we're not using anybody else's engine and calling it an Audi.
Mm.
Okay, well, call it a Bugatti or something. Call it a like some other part of your massive group, right? Like, you've got a million brands that you operate under. At least, like, leverage the investment you're putting in to promote the brands that you own. Call it a Volkswagen or something. I don't care. Like, or just have a presence. Like, you wouldn't
Mm.
know the look at a kick, steak, Sauber, whatever, that it was owned by Audi. You wouldn't know it was affiliated to Audi. As a new fan, somebody would have to tell you, oh yeah, Audi bought that team 2 years ago, but they're just sitting around waiting until they can put an engine in it before they put the four rings on the side. I just
Yeah.
think that's a really dumb approach. I think it's like for people who are a fan of motorsport. So I think, and like seeing them suck last year and be like the worst team when they have this massive company owning them. And
When you
all
had
the
Valtteri Bottas in the car as well, like, geez.
yeah, like they were awful. And it was just like, are you guys serious or what? Like, why did you buy this team now if you're just going to run around at the back? But now all of a sudden, a year out from the Audi deal commencing, and all of a sudden they're competitive. Like they're running in the midfield. So, you
Yeah,
know, maybe there's smart people there that know what they're
yeah,
doing. But at the same time, it doesn't undo the 2.5 years they wasted as a company that I
yeah,
still haven't forgiven them for as a Audi fan in sports cars.
yeah.
So it's like
Could
that's
you
that's
see
my resentment, I think.
could you see Max going? Because I had that brainwave the other day where I was like, actually, could Max
Hmm.
go there rather than go to, because the Mercedes door at the moment seems shut. Aston Martin is definitely a proposition, but I don't think he's keen to work with the Strolls. So maybe Audi. He's got Jonathan Wheatley there that he knows from Red Bull. Like, and if that project keeps going the way it could be, he would be the perfect front man for Audi.
It's gonna just depend on 2026. Like
Yeah,
I think that when you get these situations where there's a regulation change, it's like 2009. Everybody shows up and then unexpectedly certain teams just take a huge step back and
yeah,
then they start re-examining their entire concept and investment. Like
yeah,
we saw BMW, Toyota. I mean, there was a financial crisis then, but
yes.
their performance didn't help either. Like if Toyota were dominating Formula One, they wouldn't have pulled out.
No, of course, yeah. I mean, they were
Yeah,
competitive at the start of that season, I remember, but they didn't quite
no,
get it right.
they
But
faded and they died. Like they pulled the plug later in that season,
yeah,
and like BMW famously, because Kubica was doing really well in 2008,
yeah,
pulled the plug on their development in mid 2008 after they won a race, saying, "We achieved our objective. We won a race. We're going to put all of our eggs into 2009."
and they failed.
And then it was a dog, and they left.
Yeah,
And Peter
yeah,
Sauber had to buy his team back.
yeah, not good.
And like so that's the thing is like manufacturers come and manufacturers go.
Yeah,
So it's like I don't I don't I always question the commitment of manufacturers when things go wrong.
yeah. Well, we've got all that to look forward to, and we've also got to look forward to the day when Toyota take over Haas. But on that bombshell, we're going to call it a day there. Thank you to Marshall. You can find him double waved yellow on Threads. You can find me, BaxtyB, on Threads, Twitter, YouTube. All of the social links are in the description below. If you have enjoyed this episode and you want to see more from us, then please do give us a like and subscribe on YouTube. And if you're listening on an audio platform, then please do give us a 5-star review. It really helps to grow our platform. But until next time, guys, enjoy your summer break, stay safe, and we shall speak to you all very, very soon.